there's this process with a set of practices that really set the foundation for the creation of Upward Slopes back in 2020. And it's this process for creating true transformation, real valuable change. It's this process that really came to me when I was shifting from a very much so headspace, a space really living life as a scientist, engineer, someone who wanted to understand the world and use that information to really create change. I reached a point when I was working specifically in the health space that was like, wonderful. Have all of this information, so much information, and it could truly, truly save people's lives. But it's not actually helping anyone. And it wasn't even helping myself. So it brought me to this space of really deeply sitting with the question that is, we live in a world with so much information, and that's only going to get more true, right? We had the internet come into being, and now we have AI emerging, and we are going to have all of the information we could ever want right at our fingertips. What remains is the question that has become the most important thing in my life, in my work. Therefore, expect it to be at the center of anything I show up here to share with you all. How do we take whatever it is? Maybe it's a bunch of information, maybe it's a desire, maybe it's a need, maybe it's all of the above and more. How do we take this and truly apply it in a way that leads to that transformation, right? Through that transformation into a space that truly brings more light and less darkness into our world, truly relieves suffering, truly brings more joy. A simpler way to say all of that, truly brings less of what we want and more of what we do want. And in a way, it's a simple question. But when you spend as much time in that space, you start to realize, and then you realize deeper and deeper and deeper, how many problems we have with this inner world. And that as we go about life, thinking, desiring, wanting, striving for outcomes, and with ideas that only exist up here, right? My hand comes up here because that's the realm we so often work in. It's the realm that I spent 26 years of my life living in, striving to create change in the world, realizing that the path to actually creating that desirable change exists elsewhere. Where does it exist? I use the term embodied a lot. Exists in an embodied way, not just as ideas and thoughts, desires in our head, but truly can come into being through our bodies, as our bodies, and following that through all the other manifestations in this world. I opened up this video talking about, this space I'm talking about really is what created this platform. And as I move through this space, I often head down other paths that have their uses, their benefits, their joys. And I always find myself circling back. I go down a rabbit hole and get to experience all that exists there, whether that's me out in the mountains, rather that's me thinking about and working with health solutions, be those physical or mental, whatever problem or challenge, whatever space I go down, I always find myself hit with an aha. Like, oh, I am back in the space that started this whole journey. And every time I come back here to this process, and yes, we are going to get to what that process is soon. If you're new here, you may not know it. If you've been around, maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. But before that, just wanted to say every time, one path leads me back here, it's a deeper understanding of all that exists in what I call this process that I, started calling the upward slopes process. Whatever words we want to use around it. So the magic with this process for creating real change is it's so simple. So simple, but clearly has so many depths to it. So the more that you work with it, the more skillful we become with this process. Now, that is to say, when we start out on this process, because it is a process that we iterate and reiterate over and over and over again in our lives, because this is truly simply the essence of life, transformation, moving from one space to the next, doing so in a truly embodied way and not some way where we're just stuck in our heads, right? So as we go through this process and as you start to learn this process from me, just know that whatever level you understand it at is the perfect level to move forward with it. And that every time you go through this, you just get to learn more and more about, oh, that's what this piece really means. Or, oh, that's what Katie was saying in that video that I watched 6 months ago. That was like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, now that I've done this for months and months and months, now I understand. just understand that it doesn't work in this linear, stepwise way that we've been taught is the way that life works. It's cyclical and almost helical as we just get to learn and grow and expand and revisit and bring that forward and head down rabbit holes and come back to this space, but that space is now different. Okay, enough rambling. Let's get to that process. And just so you know, I've made several documents about this at this point. And if you go to upwardslopes.com, you can just go get the document, whichever version of it is available right now that kind of outlines how this works in practice. Of course, if you sign up, our We Are the Forest, that collective space, our community, is a good way to really start to work with this. Yeah. So with that, what is this process? This super simple process for creating change, for creating true transformation. So the first step, right? The first step, you're desiring something, right? You're desiring an outcome. You're desiring to solve a problem, to achieve a goal. The first step, the most powerful step that I've found, whatever I'm doing, is to pause, to take a step back, and to create some space. So in life, we've been taught to go after it, right? Whatever it is, focus on the thing and go after it. And there's a space for that. I promise you, there can be space for that. But before that, before we ever start immersing everything that we have into the thing, what if we started by taking a step back? That does a few things. As I mentioned, the further you go into this process, the more you learn is really alive in each of these steps. So, to keep it kind of surface level, what this does, we'll talk to two things today. Number one, this just brings a greater state of awareness, right? As we're going through life, it's human nature to get caught up in things. It is human nature to get hooked, right? Social media, the internet, just marketing in general is literally designed to hook us and steal us away. What if we really got in a practice of every time we're like, I need to go there, we're like, okay, but wait, what is here? What really is here? Why am I called to go there? Right? And we're starting to move into the next step. So I'm going to cut ourselves off there. So really is holding to this, moving our awareness, bringing a wider awareness. And two, in doing so, it really starts to create space. Now, again, there's so much we could talk about this power of creating space, and I think that might be the next video I'm filming. So keeping it very simple here. Life is just so damn suffocating, isn't it? It's like we are always getting bombarded with these different different desires and needs and just different forms of consciousness from different places out there. And also sometimes from in here, right? Different things that we just really want. And it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming to be hit with that all the time. I found that, a beautiful remedy to this is to really can be in this practice that's creating space. Simply that, creating space. So that's just step one, guys. Step one. There's a thing we want. There's a transformation we want. There's a goal we want to achieve. There's a problem we want to solve. Step one is taking a step back, expanding our awareness, taking it off of that full focus on, I want that thing, creating some space around it. And once we're here, we have space. Our attention is no longer being swept away. Once we're here, now it's really time to sit in this space. As we are sitting in this space, there's different things we could do before starting to take action. Okay, the action step is coming. I promise the action step is coming. But before we get there, we're sitting in this space. What I found is so powerful while sitting in this space is, one, checking in with what's going on in here, in your body, in your experience here. What's alive? Is your heart open? Is your heart alive? Is your heart in this? What's going on in your stomach, in your guts? Are they clenched up? What is that clenching? Are there butterflies? What's alive in you? And simply sitting with that. Once again, there's this piece that's, as you go through this process over time, you understand more deeply how powerful this one piece is and how deep it goes. So for now, just wherever you're at with that, if you haven't done a lot of embodied work, keep it super simple. What do I feel in my chest? Am I constricted? Am I expanded? What do I feel in my stomach? What do I feel? Keep it that simple. Okay, so the other piece to this, right? So we've paused, we've created some space, and we're sitting in this space. We're sitting in the space, we're checking in with ourselves. What's alive in you, in your body? Now is a great opportunity to bring in what's alive out there. And this piece, right? This piece is the piece that so often has our full focus. We're on our phones and we're hit with an ad and we're swept away because what's come from out there is what's taken over. We're reading a book and we're hit with the author's idea and they're so convincing. We're like, yes, I have to go pursue this thing with all that I am. Except wait. We've pressed pause. We've created space. We've checked in with our own body. Now's the time to bring that in. What is that author's idea? What is this product that's being marketed to me? What are the ideas? What is the data? What are the facts from out there? Bringing that into the space. So you see what we're doing here? We've, instead of getting swept away, pulled down one avenue after the next, never actually truly doing anything real and valuable. Now what we're doing instead is getting in the practice of creating space to bring different parts of ourself and the world here. So now that we're here, sitting in all of it, being with all of it, what do? Now it is time to go take action. Go do that thing. And maybe it's the thing that you thought you wanted to do in the first place. Maybe it is. Maybe you sit in the space and you've checked in with yourself and you're like, I'm feeling this and, the facts line up. So I'm going to go do this. Maybe you've shifted just a little bit. Maybe you thought the idea to pursue was amazing. And now you're like, it's good, but I need to adjust a little bit. Or maybe this practice, and this happens all the time when you get in the practice of it, maybe this practice has brought you to a space where you're like, no, that's a terrible idea. No, I do not want to cultivate that in my life. No, whatever force sparked that idea in me, that was not right. See how this starts to work? There's a little bit more here, so let's continue. One question that really arises, one of my favorite questions, is this part about discernment. How do we know what the right choice is? How do we know the right steps? Which we could talk about forever, right? We could truly have those conversations forever and never firmly arrive at the truest answer. So in these few seconds, I do have to share an answer with you. Now, what I can say is we do our best and we learn over time. We learn, that feeling in my gut, that one that I ignored last time, that was actually really valuable. Or we learn that voice over there, I didn't really trust that person. But after I've done this many, many times, I learned that that person tends to know what she's talking about. Tends to know what he's talking about, right? We learn to put our trust and add value to different pieces of information, whether that's coming from within or coming from without. Always coming to the space, though, where we're holding all of it, or as much as we can in a moment. And then we take action. We go do the best we can with the information we have, knowing that that step may or may not actually be helpful, right? Because we can't always know what's best to do. Instead, the only thing we can do is work with what we have, make the best decision possible, take action on it. And then, do we know what the last piece is? The last piece, we get to learn. We get to experience what unfolds when we take that next step. We get to take in that moment, to feel into, to witness. Like, what happened when I did that thing that I thought was the best thing to do? Did it create the outcome you wanted? Did it end up in a next solid, good step? Did it cause harm? And if it caused harm, that's a very important space to then step into. It's certainly not a space to be like, oh no, I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong for me because I messed up. So I should just take myself out of this whole process. That's not what we want, because this is going to happen over and over again, is when we have big goals and big problems to be solved, which is really what we spend a lot of time talking about here, right? We're not talking about simple problems with basic solutions, right? We're talking about big problems. We're talking about big goals. How do we do the thing that just we haven't been able to do or seems impossible, right? How do we really create that change that is really asking to happen? And maybe we don't think it's possible, or maybe our methods haven't been bearing fruit, right? That's the kind of world we're working in. And when we're working in that world, we are going to make decisions and take action that doesn't lead us where we think we wanted to go. And sometimes that leads to some harm, or just simply things that we didn't want. And as we call upon this process, it is so important to understand that all of it gets to be here. All of it. All of the outcomes, consequences, whatever word you want to use for the actions we take, they all get to come back in to the space that we keep creating, right? Because this is just one step in the process. We didn't solve the problem. We didn't achieve the outcome. We didn't really create that big change we were wanting with this one step. This one step takes us to the next space, where we now have more information. So in this next space, we now get to do the whole thing over again. We get to take a step back. We get to take a step back, create more space, sit in that space. What was my previous action and what were the outcomes? Do I need to repeat that? Do I need to tweak it a little bit? Do I need to throw it out, go look for other ideas to bring it in and try something different? Taking that next step, tuning in to all that happened, all that we're capable of taking in response. You see how we get to iterate over time here. Iterating this process over time. And as you do, you get to, one, actually create real change in your life. Whether it's a health problem, that you just can't get to the bottom of, that you can't find solutions for, or whether it's a big goal, right? Running 100 miles, I had no idea how to do that. The only way I could do it and learn was by showing up consistently, putting my shoes on, getting out the door, learning what I could, taking a step back, asking, what do I need? Oh, I need to read a book because if I'm going to do that next step, I need more information. Oh, I don't actually need that book anymore. Right now, I really just need to listen into my own body. Each step is going to ask different things of us. Health problems, big, just fun goals, right? That all exists here. Also, what exists here, something so important to me, is our collective problems. Climate change. What do we do about climate change? We show up. We show up and we ask ourselves, what's here? Right? What is alive in us, each of us, in each moment? What's alive out there? What information is available to us right now? Bringing it all into that space we've created and taking action, no matter how big or small. So much here, so many rabbit holes we could go down, right? And that's the great part of it all, is that we get to go down the paths that we're called to. We get to go to the problems that are lit up in us, whether that's based on a need or a desire. We get to go after the goals, the accomplishments that we desire, because that's what's lighting up in us. And we get to do it step by step, always learning, always growing, always being open to taking steps back because we thought we were here, but then we're there. Okay, I'm going to leave us here today. As always, if you want to dive deeper into this sort of thing, the We Are the Forest, our community space, is really an awesome area to join me, to join us as we start to show up more fully for our own selves, right? Our own bodies, our own experiences in the world, and for the greater world out there. Of course, as always, if you're still with me here at the end, please give a like. If you have not yet, subscribe. We can come together in more conversations like this. If there is a certain part of what I'm talking about, please leave a comment. Let me know that you want me to dive deeper into something, explain something a little bit more, maybe bring a practice to. Yeah. So whatever space we next find ourselves in, I look forward to seeing you then.